your science is really frozen in the dungeons of conservatism and in the dungeons of orthodoxy.
Wow, the land of make-believe.
If you're trying to make it as a public figure who's elevated for their ideas, be that a writer, an educator, a politician, or an apologist, you're going to face criticism. Sometimes the way you respond to that criticism can make or break your career. If you appear intelligent or virtuous in your response, you're golden. If you appear defeated or flounder around too much, you're in trouble. Public figures of all kinds know this, and each one must decide how they will deal with criticism whenever they encounter it. Often we can discern a bit about a person's honesty and quality of ideas by analyzing the approaches they employ. As we'll explore here, two features of many less than honest approaches are 1. Refusing to admit uncertainty or ignorance when such is the case, and 2. Reframing the criticism in order to draw focus away from one's weak points and direct it toward one's strengths, virtue, or criticizer. Point picking. Most criticism does not come in the form of a single direct gotcha question or as a simple statement of disagreement. Even simple, concise criticism usually includes auxiliary information, such as the criticizer's identity and word choice. Point picking is taking a piece of criticism, zooming in on the auxiliary information it contains, and responding to that instead of the central point of the criticism. This first and foremost distracts all parties from the fact that the criticized can't overcome the criticism or just humble themselves enough to acknowledge their shortcomings. It also creates a kind of straw man for the criticized to strike down, as to appear more competent than they really are. The following is an example of Ravi Zacharias using this tactic to dodge a criticism of Christianity during a Q&A.
My name is Ethan Kaiser. I am a scientist and an atheist. And my question is, since the Bible has been scientifically disproven as far as all the claims, the theory of evolution, archaeology, Noah's Ark, Adam and Eve, since we know this didn't happen because of our science nowadays, my question is, how do we have, according to the Bible, how do we have free will if God is this omniscient being that knows everything about us, everything we will do, and he pretty much knows our outcome before we're even created? So he creates us knowing everything we'll do. Since we can't surprise him by our actions, we have no free will. Our choices have been predetermined, and that the act of judgment is completely immoral because he knows what we're going to do. Nothing can surprise him. That's my question.
It's interesting that you began by saying, as an atheist, all of this has been disproved, and so you live with scientific materialism as your worldview. I studied under John Polkinghorne at Cambridge University. You probably know the name. One of the world's leading quantum physicists who came to exactly the opposite conclusion you did while being the dean at Queen's College, Cambridge, as a quantum physicist, taking the same data you did. I want to read for you what David Berlinski says about the scientific naturalistic worldview. Do you know who he is? One of the world's leading physicists. Has anyone ever provided proof of God's inexistence? Not even close. Has quantum cosmology explained the emergence of the universe or why it is here? Not even close. Does anything in the sciences or in their philosophy justify the claim that religious belief is irrational? Not even in the ballpark. Is scientific atheism a frivolous exercise in intellectual contempt? Dead on. Now, I didn't say that, all right? I'm not quoting myself.
Now, there's a lot more to that clip, so it's linked in the description, but never does Zacharias stop attacking the criticizer's supposed position, materialism, and actually explain the discrepancy in Christianity, which was the central focus of the question. Quite apparently, Zacharias was prepared to attack materialism, but not to answer this question about free will. So instead of answering the question at all, he chose to talk about materialism for several minutes as if it were central to the criticism. This allowed him to draw focus away from a valid question which he apparently could not handle in the moment, and instead talk about a topic he felt he could handle. Even without ever properly dealing with this criticism, he was still able to please the audience enough to get a round of applause. His dishonesty was craftily applied, and it turned a potential loss into an artificial win. The "I'm just asking questions" Mott. Okay, this is named a little weirdly, but I'll explain why. There's a dishonest rhetorical device called the Mott and Bailey. This consists of arguing for a point which is hard to defend, a Bailey, but when that point becomes indefensible, retreating to a point which is similar but easy to defend, a Mott. In this process, the two different points or positions are equivocated so that the successful defense of one appears as a successful defense of the other. Now, the tactic I'm describing here is the use of a specific easily defensible point, or Mott. That being that the criticized person is just speculating the best they can. They're just asking questions. They're taking the time to open-mindedly entertain all possibilities. Of course, that's easily defensible because it makes no direct claims. It portrays the criticized person as open-minded and paints the criticizer as closed-minded and dismissive. After a person has made direct claims which have proven indefensible, them acting as if their claims are justified by their open-mindedness toward the complexity of the issue is simply dishonest. Unfortunately, this happens from time to time when Jordan Peterson encounters a cutting question or valid criticism. I'll briefly show a few instances of this, but as always, the links to the full videos are in the description.
The psilocybin doesn't directly have an impact on the smoking behavior. It has to elicit what's described subjectively as a mystical experience. And you can get physiological indicators of that mystical experience. And you might say, well, that's not enough to prove that it's a mystical experience, but, you're conscious and I accept that. It's like you accept all sorts of things without being able to demonstrate their validity on every possible objective, with every possible objective criteria. So don't get in too much of a hurry. It's a serious issue. That's walloping effects. So we can't get too much in a hurry about dispensing with all that.
Yeah, and so you mentioned that you believe this is a representation of DNA.
You would bring that up too. Jesus, what is it with you guys tonight? Yeah, no, I wouldn't say I believe that. I have my suspicions that that might be it, yeah.
But I don't see how we could have perceived DNA as it is.
Right. Well, yes, we didn't objectively, but I'm not so sure we didn't subjectively. But I mean, it's very strange that these double helixes exist in so many places and that they're often utilized as healing symbols with the snake. Those are speculations. I'm operating at the edge of my understanding, but our perceptions are very mutable, and we can see things under some conditions that you wouldn't think that anybody could see. So.
As you can see, sometimes when he's called out, Peterson insinuates that he's just asking questions, just being appropriately open-minded, when really he's made direct claims which he can't properly defend. To his audience, this makes it seem like the criticism of his original point is invalid, and that the criticizer is being closed-minded to the complexity of the issue. To be fair, Peterson openly invites criticism and often handles it extremely well, definitely better than the others in this video. Kudos to him for that. But that doesn't make this specific issue excusable. The thing to remember here is that offering criticism and allowing the criticized ample time to respond is not hand-waving things away. It's not shutting the discussion down. It's not getting in too much of a hurry, and it's not refusing to take the issue seriously. If someone who is criticized and given a fair chance to respond retorts with these assertions, it might just be because they have nothing valid left to say. Feigning offense. In properly academic discussions, insults are not just inappropriate, they're also seen as an indicator of the lack of an argument. If you insult someone, you forfeit, so to speak. Feigning offense is exactly what it sounds like. It's acting as if you're offended at a piece of criticism which isn't actually intentionally insulting. It's insinuating that a piece of criticism is simply an ad hominem and then responding to it as such. This reframes legitimate criticism in a way which makes it appear illegitimate and dismissible. Further, it paints the criticizer as unfair and mean-spirited while painting the criticized as a victim which deserves the sympathy of the audience. Take this example from a well-known moment in a conversation between Deepak Chopra and Sam Harris. This back and forth occurs just after Deepak has invoked quantum mechanics to justify his mystical beliefs.
The deeper point here, and this is where the whole style and content of what you're saying is so deeply unscientific, is that there's not a physicist sitting on this stage right now. Okay, I would never be tempted to lecture a room full of 1,000 people at Caltech about physics. I'm not a physicist. You're not a physicist. And basically every sentence demonstrates that you speak on the subject. Please don't take this as an ad hominem. I mean, I'm talking about specifically what you said.
I take resentment at your questioning my scientific credentials. In fact, if anyone on this stage is more scientifically credentialed, it's me. I took physics, chemistry, biology. I'm an MD. I'm a neuroendocrinologist. And I want to object to
We've all
your
taken
saying that
physics and
brain does
chemistry in
not
biology.
obey.
Harris points out that Deepak is not a physicist and is not qualified to speak on quantum physics in the way he does. To clarify that this is not meant as an insult, Harris says as much and points out that he himself is just as unqualified. Still, Deepak begins his rebuttal by stating his resentment, insinuating that this is in fact an insult. This reframed the criticism so the audience could focus less on the fact that Deepak really isn't qualified and more on the notion that Harris is using insults as argumentation. This tactic may have been successful for some in the audience as evidenced by the applause. Fortunately, Harris then dealt with this implication very successfully by assuring he didn't mean to insult and by rephrasing his statement so Deepak would have to face it yet again. It doesn't go well for Deepak after that if you watch the rest of the video.
You missed the point. I wasn't criticizing your scientific credentials. You're an endocrinologist. You're an MD. You're not a theoretical physicist. The way science is done is
I invite theoretical physicists in this audience to actually address these questions.
Okay.
And so, Leonard, you are a quantum physicist?
I'm a theoretical physicist. Would you like to have a short course in quantum mechanics sometime so that we can straighten out your slightly misuse of quantum notation?
Inventing hypocrisy. No one likes a hypocrite. Sometimes discovering a person's hypocrisy can be more off-putting than finding out they're actually incorrect about something. If you're wrong, you're quite possibly still being honest, but if you're a hypocrite, not so much. Inventing hypocrisy is finding a way, however dishonestly, to insinuate that your criticizer is revealing their hypocrisy in either their criticism or in their communication in general. It can be done inside or outside of a direct dialogue with one's criticizer. Ironically, this dishonest tactic is meant to point out dishonesty. It takes the focus off the criticized and puts it on the criticizer. This is a form of deflection, but also involves strawmanning as well, as the supposed hypocrisy need not be actual as long as the tactic takes the criticized out of the hot seat. When the criticizer is not present to defend themselves, deflection may be minimal, while strawmanning is more heavily relied upon. This is exemplified in this snippet from the Answers in Genesis Facebook live show, Answers Live News. Here, the Young Earth creationist hosts discuss a news story about faulty forensic science resulting in false convictions. In their discussion, they mention the fallibility of humans performing science, as well as the general public's trust in scientists.
But see, that's the mentality. We have traded God, who is the absolute authority, as our absolute God. They've thrown him out, in the public side that is, and now they're trusting, a lot of times, these secular scientists that what they say can't be wrong.
Yeah, and it's interesting how they can be so skeptical about forensic science, but not be equally skeptical of evolutionary science. At least forensic science has some evidence to support it.
Yeah.
Evolution doesn't.
Here, the general public and those who accept evolution and subsequently criticize creationism are all equated. Hypocrisy is invented when one host says that the evolutionist general public is willing to be skeptical of forensic science, but not of evolutionary science. This not only paints evolution acceptors as dishonestly hypocritical, but also builds the straw man of skeptics suspending skepticism to accept evolution with absolutely no evidence. Realistically, there is no hypocrisy here. No one is saying that they're okay with skepticism within this subfield, but not another. The peer review system exists among forensics journals as well as evolutionary biology journals, and the general public often criticizes concepts within both fields in public forums. Now, inventing hypocrisy can happen in a multitude of ways, and pseudoscientists are developing new ways to use it all the time.
I hope today, Michael, that you will convert from a skeptic to a neuroskeptic, because your science is really frozen in the dungeons of conservatism and in the dungeons of orthodoxy.
So basically, I believe in the beginning God, and you believe in the beginning dirt. Don't tell me my theory is religious and yours is science. Oh, no, sir, they're both religious.
Hopefully, though, you've learned just enough here that you'll now be able to catch some of these dishonest tactics when they're being used. At the very least, perhaps this will keep you from being duped by these tactics, although I'd love it if some of you actually got the opportunity to encounter them in use and then hold their users' feet to the fire. Most importantly, though, take the lesson from this video that the most honest and respectable way to deal with criticism is not to cleverly evade it, but to tactfully face it head-on, being a big enough person to admit mistakes when you've made them. Thanks for watching. I've been Drew of Genetically Modified Skeptic. Before you click off the video, I need to announce that Adam, the top patron and personal Lord and Savior of this channel, will be stepping down to a lower pledge at the end of October. Adam pledged at such a high level to ensure that I could go full-time on YouTube about 6 months ago. He believed in me, literally made this channel possible for everyone, and let me know he's happy with how the channel has progressed. It's purely a financial decision to reduce the pledge right now. And I just can't thank Adam enough for supporting me and my work in such a drastic way. That being said, at the end of the month, there will be a sizable drop in the amount pledged per video, and if you want to help keep me and my channel stable, consider becoming a patron. Although, I can't stress this enough, if you're a full-time student or financially at risk, please keep your money. I can't tell you how many teens or young adults have told me they're pledging the only extra cash they have. If that's your situation and you really want to support me, give me comments, likes, and shares. It helps me in YouTube's algorithm, and I still really appreciate it. As always, praise be unto Adam, my top patron and personal Lord and Savior, for making this video possible. Go ahead and subscribe, check out my Patreon, follow me on Twitter and Facebook at GMSkeptic, join my Discord, and until next time, stay skeptical.